Right. So good afternoon again. Welcome to the NEBOSH level three, right? April class anyway. So we were saying that last week we had done NG2, the risk assessment project, right? We had covered part three of it, part two, part one. And I mean, not a lot of projects came in for the week, right? So the next thing on the syllabus is just to run through the theory on the project, which we already did. So I was saying that the theory is gonna go a bit fast today, seeing that we already did the theory on it, right? Um, but it's August, right? And if you didn't know as yet, you are carded to write the exam in September, meaning that we are going to finish the course in August, right? I think the September date, um, you would have to. I don't have my phone around me, right? But well, it should be the first Wednesday in September, right? If not the first Wednesday in I'm a student at the office. Yeah, the first Wednesday in September. But you would know because when the things paid for, you would know they'll give you a confirmation slip, right? I don't have the phone with me, right? They couldn't have it, and then the calendar on the wall. If anybody could verify with me, and then we have other exams at the school.
September
Um,
3rd,
no, when is the 6th of September?
Saturday,
No, it can't be the 6th. Okay, was the second? Was the second Wednesday in September? The
the
10th?
10th.
No,
Yeah.
well, it'll be the 10th. It'll be the 10th, right? So exams are going to be carded. So we have a week in September then, right? So exam is going to be carded for September the 10th. I saw it today, but remember I told you all it's not one subject we do. So I didn't want to say it now. I wanted you all to check if it was the diploma, right? Because we have a diploma exam in September too. But yes, if it's the first week and it's so close to like the third, it will be the 10th, right? So the exam is carded for the 10th of September, right? Which gives us about 5 weeks again. And so your project draft could be handed up at any time, right? But you should try to hand it up before the last Wednesday in August. If you want to take that down. I'm not in right the last Wednesday day, right? But the last Wednesday in August, because we need to do some stuff with it. The thing though is that the earlier you get it to me, the better we could start to look at your feedback now, right? There'll come a point in time, some students get catch with this. Remember, I told you all that. I told you all you have to know what you want, right? And I told you about the November class that wrote exam in May, 100% of them passed, but never, not every class is like that. As much as we talk about this, some people don't hand up their project on time. But there's a day coming then when I have to send it up to NEBOSH. And if you didn't hand it up in time, some people hand up the draft, they never fix their draft, right? And then but all I have is a draft. Then when the day comes, I have to hand up your draft, right? So just remember that and remember we said, remember the thing really is going to NEBOSH, but this is not any local based course here. As much as you have a grace period now, we give you like a month grace period, right? You can hand up a project anytime and get a feedback in a timely manner, of course, right? But there's a day coming when it would not it'll be too late then, right? Like today, I had a parent come in the office. She was telling me, when I check her son, and he's a big man by the way, when I check her son detail, he was marked absent. And the only reason I remember him, right? I gave him a draft more than once and he didn't hand it back up in time, right? I reached out to him. She had the messages where I reached out to him, but he didn't hand it up. He didn't hand it up, right? So it was such a mess then that he didn't hand up the final. So I placed him as absent, right? To put him on the draft would not have been correct anyway. It would not have gone, right? He would have made too much of mistakes on it. So I put him as absent anyway, right? So that's why, when a lot of you all ask what's the pass rate, we say it's dependent on you, right? It is dependent on you. You are the class. It's not really dependent on me, right? If you all hand up your draft, I could be very vicious with it and start calling you all and asking you all, look, I give you all that earlier deadline, right? But as adults, we try not to go that way. We try to say if you're spending your money, we say we have a grace period. But as much as you hand it up, we would review it. And then So there would be a cutoff. The cutoff is the Wednesday, this Wednesday, the last Wednesday in August is the cutoff, right? But you have a grace period from now till then to kind of get certain things done, right? So I'm kind of happy with the September 10 date because what that means is that what that means is that we would have an extra week in September, and I'm grateful for that. Not we wouldn't be doing work, just to let you know the course is going to finish in August, right? But we could probably do a passive per session or something. We have done enough of those. We could do something like that then, in the Saturday before your exam anyway. And if you're lucky enough, maybe you get that Saturday off. That's the sixth. That's the sixth I was talking about, right? But it may be useful to do passive or something, right? Anyway, folks, without any further ado, we are working on your payments. Remember that right now we have applied for the September exam. Um, we're waiting on some stuff to get approved. It should be approved by Wednesday. So I think I'll address you all more formally by Wednesday. Once the payments, portal and stuff is open, once we could register you for the exam, we will start to do that by Wednesday of this week, right? If anybody doesn't want to write the exam, let me know. There's exam every month. You would know what you're doing, right? In terms of what your preference is. Exam is every month. There's October, there's November, and yes, there's December, right? But you shouldn't wait for so long. I would recommend you kind of get it over with. But if anybody traveling, work commitments, family, whatever, right? Pregnancy, whatever, you can't force yourself in that sense, then, it may be best do it another time. But once you're able, do it and get it over with because it's not a hard exam. You all know that. Pretty easy. All the answers inside the case study. Take your time and you'll pass, right? Anyway, so on to today's theory, which we already covered. That's how it is on the syllabus now. I have to run through this with you. So we have the legal requirements of doing a risk assessment, the aims and objectives of a risk assessment, identifying hazards, risk assessors, and composition of a risk assessment team, criteria for suitable and sufficient risk assessment, right? So the last kind of theory class we had was safety culture. How could safety culture be improved? If you remember the definition for culture, improving the worker and the manager, the formula, now you and the group. If you improve any one of that, you're gonna get an improved safety culture, right? So the aim and objectives here, we know doing a risk assessment is a legal requirement. You'll see this here. Doing a risk assessment is part of the law. The law in the UK is the Management of Health and Safety Drug Regulation 1999. It basically, remember all of this we did. What is a hazard? Anything to do with anything that has the potential to cause harm. What is risk? You also saw these formulas already. You saw it in the project too. Risk is you take the likelihood, you multiply by severity, and you judge it out of 5. That process itself is called a risk assessment, right? The objective of a risk assessment to ensure the work is done safely, right? So to determine by the organization, to determine the measures required by the organization to comply with relevant health and safety legislation, to ensure the risk is acceptable, to fulfill a moral duty of care to employees, to prevent accidents, to reduce direct and indirect costs associated with an accident. If you want, this has a bit of explanation in it. So let me take off what I have on the left-hand side. These are about the only thing that have explanation in it today, right? The rest of it is stuff you know already. So the law, by the way, are you all seeing the slide? Yeah? Okay. Sometimes you're not. Okay, good, good. Thanks. Sometimes, as I was switching classes there now, right? Sometimes you all don't see it. You probably seen the last one, but anyway, if you say you see it, fine, right? So, this is a phrase in the law in Trinidad and Tobago and in Guyana. This is a phrase, right? So the phrase is suitable and sufficient. And what it really means, it means that you have done enough, right? A suitable and sufficient risk assessment means then that you have done enough. Otherwise, it wouldn't be suitable and sufficient. So they have had 1 or 2 papers on this, right? That say for you to comment on if the risk assessment was not suitable and sufficient, meaning you didn't do enough. The level of details wasn't enough. You didn't record all the finance, right? it wasn't appropriate. And those things, if you find that in the case study, they will tell you, they will say like a general risk assessment was done, but they didn't consider the pregnant woman. In that case, it's not suitable and sufficient. So then if you get it, the simple way to explain this, a suitable and sufficient risk assessment means that you have done enough, right? You have you have not just you have not just done a general risk assessment then, but you have kind of tailor made it to the people in your organization, right? A risk assessment is not enough or not suitable and sufficient if you see years pass, right? One of the criteria for suitable and sufficient is that it must be updated like on a yearly basis, right? So the OSHAC of Trinidad and Guyana says annually. If you read a case study and it says the risk assessment, right? The risk assessment is it's 10 years old and they ask you to comment, but then you can just say, well, it's not suitable, it's not sufficient as the law, which law? The Management of Health and Safety Drug Regulation requires that it should be suitable and sufficient and it should be updated every year. Now, if they say it's updated every 10 years, then that's not suitable and sufficient, right? I think you understand the easy explanation. The easy explanation was, did they really consider you? Did they really consider the pregnant woman? Did they really consider the young worker? Did they really consider the elderly worker? Did they consider somebody that was visually impaired? These are the things you'll find in the case study, right? You would find things like there was a young worker who had on an earphone listening to music, right? You'll find things. So remember the case study, have your answers. And if you see that, if they say pregnant woman is a good one, they tend to bring that one a lot. Elderly workers, and they then say for you to comment on if it was suitable. Definitely, right? Sometimes they say like the risk assessment is just 2 pages long. That one is in terms of detail, the level of detail, right? So if what was mentioned was like confined space work, if what was mentioned was something high risk then, and the case study says the company is using a ready-made risk assessment from the internet. Now you can say, well, that is not suitable to my company. Well, to the company in the case study, right? You say, in my opinion, the law requires a suitable and sufficient risk assessment. You could pull things on my slide. You can say the level of detail should have reflected how risky the thing was. But as seen in the case study, they were using a ready-made risk assessment from a previous tender or previous job, right? Take a note, that's why I slowed down and remember that's why I slowed down and started writing this. For some reason, students don't like it, this kind of question. And for some reason, NEBOSH like it because they know you all don't like it, right? I think it's the easiest question out there for you to judge if a risk assessment is suitable or sufficient. The case study will have it. It's either it up to mark or it's not up to mark, right? But you can pull words up here now. You can say they did not find all the foreseeable risks. They did not have sufficient detail. They did not find significant finance, right? It was not appropriate to the person that was on the wheelchair. I'm just making up that, right? Right? It was not suitable for the nature of the work. It was not updated in an annual basis, right? So you can pull things. So this slide here is not really, I mean, this is from the law. This is an extract from the law. But if you understand the bigger concept is not enough. So you could find more answers in a case study where it was just not enough. They will tell you. For example, they can say something like a risk assessment was done, but it was put in a drawer and locked away in a drawer. Right? That's a common one. Another one is no one knew what the risk assessment had in it. So how could it be suitable if you do it by put it in a drawer, a locker, a cabinet, and no one know what it is, right? So it's not suitable, it's not sufficient, right? Take a note of that. But I wrote it for you on this slide. You can't miss it. Um, so we didn't see it in July. July is this, well, 2 days ago. July exam didn't have anything on suitable and sufficient. risk assessment as a whole is not too much tested in NG1 because remember that's NG2, right? So the whole of NG2 is a risk assessment, which is a project, right? So, but they have. And like I can remember the year, I remember the year was actually 2021. June 2021 was one of these questions came, right? June 2021. I can't remember it after that. It may have come once more after that, right? But not a trending topic. It's just it is a topic. It has come before. But I sure you all see past papers. Most I have one open here if you want we could open one at the end of the class. Most past papers don't even test risk assessments, right? But when it comes, for some reason, I'll tell you earlier, some students don't like it. I think is the easiest question. So did you all understand it? You're just judging on if the risk assessment is enough, and you'll tell that from the case study. Is it enough? Are they doing enough? Is it suitable? Is it sufficient? And you'll know that from the case study. If you leave out a pregnant woman, then how could it be sufficient? If they say 10 years old, how could it be sufficient? It cannot be, right? So it's easier for you all now once you understand the concept. Let me know if you have any questions again. That's why I slowed down because I remember um I remember the year, I remember the students and then two of them are good friends of mine. Two of them working in safety now. When they were here, they were not working in safety. One had a shoe store, right? In the pandemic in 2021, selling shoes, an online shoe store. She is now in the companies. Everybody knows her, right? And the other one, he is with TIS, right? And not a low level safety, right? So two of them. But I remember that class because I deal with them all the time, in fact, right? One of them was here today, the other one is in the diploma class. But a funny story here is that I remember that group chat, like when the question came on suitable and sufficient risk assessment, I saw people chat and they didn't know what to do. But it's the same teacher I teach all the time. I saw somebody put a sticker, not a sticker, a gift, right? A GIF with Kermit the Frog committing suicide, jumping off a building. I was like, what? Paper is so easy, right? So, that's I remember telling students do like the question. They was like, but I suppose if you all remember the recording, I think you could probably do is probably play back the recording if like you didn't make class notes. I would tell them make class notes and you get back the concept of what a suitable and sufficient risk assessment is. If you could play back the video and you listen piece of it, maybe on fast, right? Play it over fast or something, right? On speed, fast forward or something, right? You could probably get your learning back. But that was the thing now. I remember seeing, that was the first time I saw that come and the frog thing. It's like, why? Why? The question is too easy, right? Anyway, everybody is different, huh? And yes, we had recording, so they could have recorded it. I think the person who put that, I don't think he passed Nibosh. The rest of them did. All right. Okay. The rest of it, right? The rest of it would be easy now, right? Remember, risk assessment could be qualitative from one of our first class. You could use words, high, medium, or low. You could use numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a more detailed matrix. It could be a combination in which you use words and numbers, right? Risk assessors must be competent. So who is a risk assessor? The answer is you, right? Skilled experience with both practical and theoretical knowledge. A risk assessment does not be done by more than one person except for your exam. It could include the HSE manager, professional supervisor, someone familiar with work activities and location of work, sales representatives, safety representatives, sorry, my mistake, specialists, if needed for non-routine activities. Any other, it could be anybody else who actually doing the work. It's a good idea to involve them, right? And doing a risk assessment, right? Remember these kind of things. You take the likelihood, multiply by the severity, low, medium, high, you multiply it, right? So the law here, the Management of Health and Safety Work Regulations 1999, we said this before, require the employer to undertake a suitable and sufficient risk assessment. You must do a risk assessment for young persons mentioned in regulations, I think 17 16, you must do a suitable and sufficient risk assessment for pregnant women. Once they give you notification of the pregnancy, the company, if they have to sort of rearrange the facility to make sure the person is not at risk. If the person is working shift, she's to be put on a daylight shift. If they cannot do that, they are to suspend the work and she's to be given full pay because it's not that she's doing wrong, right? Regulation 1718 talks about nursing mothers as well. Somebody who's also expectant to give birth, right? So all of those persons, they need what is called a suitable and sufficient risk assessment. Young persons, lots of questions on this, one or two questions on pregnant women as well, right? So yeah, I've been sitting for a long time, right? So trying to adjust on the chair. So lots of questions in young people with young persons driving, the company vehicle fast, walking across vehicle routes, right? So a young person may be inexperienced or unaware, something maybe beyond their physical ability, but they feel as if they can move it. They feel as if they're strong enough. They're more susceptible to toxin, carcinogens, radiation, hazardous work practices, extreme of heat, noise, vibration, cold. Why the rest of workers not so vulnerable is that they're seasoned, right? They've been working around the noise for a long time. They're accustomed. Their skin get accustomed to the dust, whatever. But a young person might not be, right? I remember just a funny one, not too funny, but like one of my first jobs then, right? Remember I told you I was working straight out of high school. We was cleaning some tank, South Trinidad. For those who know that area, Santa Flora, they call it the Fields Road, right? It's a road you can take to go straight down Point Fortin, right? Come out Guapo there by the Dunlap roundabout for those of us in Trinidad, right? The first, as soon as you enter the road on the left-hand side, no, I mean like just like the first like 3 to 4 minutes on the left-hand side, I haven't been there in more than 20 years, right? Probably more, right? There used to be a collection of tanks, like a tank battery. They call it a tank battery. Remember one of my first jobs with a contractor there was to clean the oil that spill over the tank then, right? And I remember using the chemical that they gave me. Probably could have been about 19, 18, 19 years. And it didn't burn or nothing like that. The chemical did not burn. It didn't burn. And by the way, how we were cleaning the tank, you literally had to fill it in a bucket and it was like a like a I guess like a emulsifier. You had to, it wasn't a hose. It wasn't a hose. You had to take it in the bucket and sort of toss it onto the tank. And then but after they emulsify the oil, and then you could probably use like a water or something to wash it off. Anyway, it didn't hurt at all. It was not like that. But when I came home, right, and like the following day, the skin, it didn't hurt either. The skin on my hand, the skin, the epidermis, came out like all of it flaked out, all of it, right? But it didn't hurt. That's the thing. It didn't hurt at all. It was like no pain. But like when I went, I probably might have been in A levels if I was 18 or 17, going on 18. Everybody's like, what happened? But it didn't hurt. It was just like using the chemical. I used to have to work to kind of make my way now. Remember, I told you all those stories already, right? And, so yeah, so young people, there's a story that somebody, and then other workers would have used that chemical all the time and not would have happened to them. But young persons are more susceptible because their skin isn't that, accustomed to things like that kind of chemical and anything like that, right? People who are differently abled also need a special risk assessment to suit their disability. If you're mobility impaired, visually impaired, hearing impaired, remember the risk assessment have to be tailored to you, right? So if you're mobility impaired, maybe you sprain your foot, they could probably put you on the ground level of a company, maybe have a wheelchair, right? If you're visually impaired, in the risk assessment, and they can say, look, Frank is an elderly worker. He's been with us since day one. He was there with the managers and but he hasn't. Like he's having some trouble. See them, right? Let's call him Larry, which is actually a real worker that I came across, right? So like what we can do with Larry is we could probably put in the risk assessment that probably need a little bit brighter light, or maybe he needs some assistance in getting in and getting out of the company, getting down the flight of stairs, etc. Right? Hopefully Larry still is alive, right? But that's what you have to do. You have to tailor the risk assessment, right? You have to tailor the risk assessment to suit. I've come across some really admirable people in my career too, now, I remember there was a guy, Ashton. Ashton was 70 something years and now doing NEBOSH. What do you all think of that? I thought I was old to study. This guy was 70 something years old and he was doing NEBOSH. I was like, Ashton, why? Why? Right? It's like, why? Why, Ashton? Why? There are easier courses you could do in life, right? Like probably music or something, or, you know, but Ashton was seven, and Larry was going to 70 years too, right? The time that I knew him. But he was always kind of studying as well. Like some people really, again, like, I got into safety late. Remember, I tell you that I got into safety later now. I got into safety later now. I got into safety in probably when I turned around 13. I'd actually finished a degree already. And then now have to go back and say, wait now, my degree from first start didn't worth anything. I'm giving you my story. Yeah? My story is not your story, right? And then I had it. So yeah, but these guys and coming across people that study, and who keep on studying as often. I guess that's admirable even to me anyway. Yeah. All right. So remember people, the elderly, there's a story here, right? Nursing mothers, young people, you need to do a suitable and sufficient risk assessment. So this you saw already. This is the heading. This is the heading of your table, right? This is the heading of your table, right? Remember the heading of your RA table, identify the hazard. Remember, see if you remember the heading. Second column is who could be harmed and how. Evaluating the risk is kind of part three. Record review is part four. Now, if you're here new to the class, and of course, I mean, you all are April students, but when I said new to safety, then if you don't know these 5 steps, you should learn them. Not for exam, but for you, right? Like when you get out there in the company, that's how they do a risk assessment. Identify the hazard, decide who might be harmed and how, evaluate the risk, right? Record and review. That is like the basic. That like that's an interview question. If you're going to do a safety job, they could ask you, well, what is the steps in a risk assessment? That's an interview question. It's not an e-bosh question because it's too easy now. You could just open up the slide and find it, right? It's set in a source document called INDG 163, if anybody want to download it. The 5 steps are said there. But this is how we do risk assessment, which is why these are the headings of your table, right? All right. So the rest of this slide is how do we identify hazards? Different ways doing a risk, well, looking at previous risk assessments, looking at GSAs, safe systems of work, looking at workplace inspection. How do you identify hazard? By doing an inspection, analyzing job instructions, taking a tour, analyzing past accidents. If there was an accident, somebody slip and fall, well, then the slip and fall is the hazard, right? You could get hazards and manufacturing data. You want to give them a book? You want to see if you like it? Just check the box and see. July, right? Just check how much books it have inside there. Yeah. I could probably take one because I didn't see the other class. Yeah. Yeah. So results of health surveillance, results of auditing, results of testing such as sparse dust or gas sampling, absence records may be linked to what the hazard is, trade union action. This is just knowledge, right? How do you identify hazards, right? Who could be harmed? Employees. This is column 2 of your RA, public visitors, contractors, people who have the right of entry, trespassers could be harmed as well, young persons, disabled persons, new expected mothers. The HSC here is the Health and Safety Executive, and the AHO is Environmental Health Officers. Basically, anybody coming to your company could be harmed, right? How do we measure risk? Remember, we did this already. Quantitative, semi-quantitative. We can take the two figures, multiply it, severity by likelihood or likelihood by severity, right? You could use a matrix system. 1 to 5 is the most common. If you get anything in the red, you want to come out of that. Red means you have to stop the activity, right? Yellow, you could work, but look to improve. Green is best. Like the more controls you put in place, though, the more you should come down to the green, right? Look, I have a guide here. Anything higher to the 25 is seen to be unacceptable. Anything kind of within the range of 10 to 16, tolerable. Look to improve. 1 to 4 and stuff is acceptable. You don't really have to do anything. Unless if your company have plenty money and you want to control more. Like some companies don't take 4 then. It have companies out here like Atlantic. Every time we do the RA, they want it better. Your risk is already 4. 4 is in the green. But they will say, what else could we do to bring it lower down? Companies that have money would invest in the money to bring the risk down even lower anyway, right? If controls are sufficient, then if controls are not sufficient, then controls must be introduced to reduce the risk to safe and acceptable levels. Remember that's your fourth column, that's the further control column in the RA. These controls are usually derived from, the control hierarchy. We'll see the control hierarchy just now. You all saw it already because you did part of it. You want to put this back in the drawer? Put that back in Chinese for me. Yes. Yeah. You took your stuff, right? Yeah. All right. Okay, good. Yeah. There's also something called the general principles of prevention. Um, the general principles of prevention is like a hierarchy. I'll explain that for you just now. That's the other slide. That's the other presentation for today. But I just did. The general principles of prevention is another hierarchy, right? So the hierarchy of control, the new ISO standard, OSAS, not OSAS, well, the previous one was OSAS, right? 18,001, but the new one, ISO 45,001, on occupational health and safety management system requirement is being produced. It has been produced already, and it's kind of replaced OSAS over the years, right? So I think when you work over the risk, some of you all know that if you put the controls in place, you work over the risk, we get a new risk level. That new risk level is called the residual risk, right? Like if you would have gone from 25, I have one, so bear with me a bit. I have one on this slide, right? If you're going from 25, you said, okay, the worker didn't have on a harness. You put a harness on him, it wouldn't drop to 1, but it will drop now, right? So if it come down to 16, shouldn't come to 16, right? If it come to 16, you need to do something else, but be more training, secure the scaffold, um, put up the guardrails. You need to do more and get it out of the red. But if you come up in the 12, well, the 12 now, from 16 or from 20 or from 25 to 12, the last figure you come up with is called residual risk, right? So like I have one here. I told you just bear with me. I better have more than one, in fact, right? So an electric kettle overheated. This is what you have in your kitchen. I think most people have it. I put the likelihood of a fire here is 5, severity 4, 5 by 4 is 20. That's unacceptable. We have to stop. We have to maintain the kettle, do regular testing, frequent inspection. And I dropped it from 5, I went to 2, from 4, I went to 3, 2 by 3 is 6. By the way, Pat is not the name of a person. Um, that unit of the course doesn't have any exam question. PAT stands for Portable Appliance Testing. It's a law in England. You want to write it down just for your sake. It's not examinable, right? So PAT, first of all, right, what PAT stands for Portable Appliance Testing. What it is like a threefold inspection regime. So you're inspecting your piece of equipment 3 times or three folds of inspection, right? PAT itself is not the law, though. The law is called the Electricity at Work Regulation. Some of you have made mention of it in your project already. Electricity at Work Regulation is the name of the law, and it requires that electronic items be inspected 3 times or 3 regimes of testing. Yeah, it's kind of old, right? Electricity at Work Regulation, 1989. 1989. Can't remember what happened back then. Anyway. Yeah. So Pat, so this is what this is. Pat is not the name of a person, huh? Pat is the name of the testing thing I told you. Okay. So going ahead, but in those controls, if you inspect anything 3 times, that's when I went to drop it to 2 now, from 5 to 2. From 4, I drop it to 3. This is called residual risk anyway. Right? I have been sitting since 8:30. I'm gonna try to change up. And the chair is comfortable, but if you sit for a long time, still is uncomfortable, right? All right. I'm taking this off and we could go on again, right? All right. Well, in a risk assessment, you record the format of your table is the record. So when you say you need a format, well, the RA that you're doing is the format itself, right? You need to put in it everything you all put on yours. Just try to remember, you put the details of the person doing the RA, right? You put the date and time of the assessment. I think that's part four, though. Details of location, part one. How many people, equipment, activities, and the date of review is part four, right? So I did up one here again. Um, so the reason for this one, right, is that there's a bit of a there's a bit of a there's a bit of a problem. I think Nibosh is working on it, right? So you all bear with me and bear with them, right? I often believe, I think I told you that the risk assessment that you all do for your exam then is different to how it is in real life. In the real world, when you put the hazard on the table and you put who could be harmed and how they could be harmed, you work out the risk right there now. There's no part three. It is worked out on the table itself. If anybody working in the company say you actually know that, right? So I did this one to closely reflect how it is done in the real world. And I think Nibosh is going back to that. Yeah, because they actually had it forever. Well, since Nibosh came out, they always had the risk assessment calculator there. It's only during the pandemic they took the calculation and they put it in part three. But the table then, an RA table in the real world doesn't have that. The calculation is done on the table. Both of them, the initial risk and the residual risk is done on the table itself, right? So those here I didn't tell earlier how it should be, right? And like I said, you know, a syllabus is good for 5 years. Pandemic, COVID still is around, by the way, right? But the 5 years kind of coming to an end now, right? So I do believe that the syllabus will take some changes shortly. And I think I said this to you all, like Nibosh is like the WWE. They just play over the same stories with different people now. Of course, I am the person now. After me and before me was somebody else, right? And then after me, I wouldn't be around forever. Somebody else would be running Nibosh 20 years from now. I would retire, right? But it would change and change back, right? But this is how it was before. This is how we had done it when I did it. This is how we had done it, and this is how the company does it, right? So I put one here for you so that you'll understand. Next thing you go out in the company and you say, "Look, hey, Shadrach teacher, this is part three, and it don't know part three, the risk assessment, right?" No. So there is a disparity there, and the disparity is on Nibosh's part, right? And not really the company part. This is how it's done. So you put your hazard, you put, well, you can identify, some further hazards. These hazards are off your table now. Pinch points and things is not on your RA table. Don't use this, of course. Use what we taught you last week, right? Who could be harmed? You need to say technicians, but I was trying to make up slides. So I try to fit as much as I could fit on this slide then, right? So you could actually put worker, technician, supervisor, right? What are the existing risk controls? Proper supervision, permit to work. What is the risk here? I put likelihood 5, severity 4, 5 by 4 is 20. And then you put in further controls. Of course, you need to put more further controls, but I just put one because it was a slide. I want everything to fit on this slide, right? So from this regular monitoring, I dropped it from 5, I went to 3, from 4, I went to 2, 3 by 2 is 6. 6 is much better than 20, of course. You could pick that up from here. 6 is definitely, on the lower end of the yellow, close to the green, 5 and 6. So we can live with that, right? And that's how a real risk assessment is actually done. The rest of this is when to review. When you review a risk assessment, whenever there are changes to people, places, processes after an accident, after you do some sort of health surveillance records and it shows you that we have dust, workers are breathing in the dust, we need to do something about that, right? Results of hygiene monitoring, you did noise sampling, you did your cautious for chemicals, by the way. Cautious are low for chemicals. You all may have come across it as well in your project. Let me tell you what it stands for, if anybody writing it down. So if you're looking for the regulation for chemicals, you're doing that part of your project, part 3. It's COSH, right? Control of Substances Hazardous to Health Regulation. The year is about 2002, but it has been amended a lot. Control of Substances Hazardous to Health Regulations, 2002. It has been amended a lot. It's been amended 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006. Whichever one you get is correct, right? Should probably go with the latest one though, right? If there's a change in legislation or introduction of new piece of equipment or new law, anything that you change and you review risk assessment whenever you have a change, right? Further reasons to review process change may have taken place. An incident has occurred that may highlight a point of weakness in the present assessment. The coordinator left, and he has my phone. Give me a minute. I hope he didn't. Oh, he left it, right? It's after three now. Those of us who may be looking at this on YouTube, wherever, right? It's after three. So normally the coordinators are open on Saturday till till three anyway, right? But it's after three, right? Just let me just get this call and I'll get back to you all. I'm gonna take the opportunity to kind of I did kind of change my foot there a bit, right? So let us do that as well. Yeah, thanks for your time again. I mean, I really don't expect the coordinators to work to my kind of hours anyway, right? So this class kind of gets, you know what I tell you, the last class that was here, the 230 class, which is you all, that was the class that got the 100% passes and all. And this is the class, this 230 class is normally the class I'm most tired for. And, is the one that has, when the coordinators leave now, it's still an address if anybody come in and stuff. And I think I told her that the last class I told them, you all are my tired class, right? And the tired class is the one that get the 100% passes in Nibosh now, right? The morning class and everybody fresh, right? I fresh too in the morning, but talking from 8:30 to now, yeah. But yeah, the tired class is the class that got the 100% passes anyway, right? Let me move on here. I think this lesson is finished, right? You can just read this out for yourself. The reason why I say finish, it have a bunch of hazards to the back here, but please don't choose this. Remember, they give you a table. That's a project table, right? So I sometimes try to ignore this because sometimes people say, look, it have more hazards in the back here. No, it doesn't. Forget this slide. Forget that slide. Remember, you're supposed to take your hazards from a table that they give you, right? So that's why sometimes I tell you, look, some people say, well, you thought I don't even want to say the words, right? Forget those slides, please. Remember for your project, they tell you to use the hazards on the table, not for the whole course, right? They even say for the avoidance of doubt, use the hazards in the table, right? You could use things like manual handling. If you remember, like clean out battery charger is not a hazard in the table, so you can't use that, right? Remember that rule, you have to use the hazard that's on your guide. What's the guide? The document with the forklift, right? So this lesson is finished. Let's kind of get to the other one. The other one was the one I tell you on the hierarchy of control, which is actually your fourth column. If you want, we could jump straight to that anyway. But I'll take my time with it because this is the last one for today. Um, we mightn't finish, but if we could reach the permit to work, if we could reach there, we could finish this next week and they could finish chapter 3 next week. And then chapter 4 is only 2 sessions long. Right? I wouldn't do any passivers and thing to take up our time. But even chapter 4 is short. I could still squeeze. I won't do any passivers today, but I could still squeeze in a passiver. See all around the 19th of August, the 26th of August. By the 26th, we finish, right? Um, if I don't stop to do passivers, then it will finish before that. We could finish in the 19th itself, right? It isn't long after this. And once you finish the project, it's just like 2 more sessions and we tend to make it four because we do passivers and things, but it's like just 4 sessions after that, right? Anyway, this one, the objective of this session to facilitate meeting towards the following teams. I would leave permit for next week because um we don't need to hustle on everything, right? Permit wouldn't take a whole class. permit to take like 10 minutes to teach next week, and we could just move on with the last piece of chapter 3, right? So the learning outcomes for today, again, the second part of today, what is the general principles of controlling hazards and reducing risk? That's the hierarchy of control. That's what I did in column 4. Eliminate, substitute. That's the hierarchy, right? Sources of health and safety information is too easy. Safe systems of work is at JSC. That's what it is, right? And we'll leave permit for next week. Otherwise, we may finish a bit too early, right? So the revision is what we just did. What is the 5 steps to doing a risk assessment? I told you to learn it by heart, even though it really come like that. Is identify the hazard, who could be harmed, evaluate the risk, record and review. You should know that for the job site. Risk could be assessed qualitatively using words or quantitative using numbers. This last one, could you all answer that one? What influences the review of a risk assessment? What are some things we just did out? What are some things that will cause you to review a risk assessment? Change in what? Change in, we just did that. We closed it off just now. What could cause you to review a risk assessment? A change in,
Road scope.
a change in, what's the word? Could you say over? I didn't come across that clear. Change in, anybody else gonna have a go at it? After a what? When will you review a risk assessment? After a, fill out the blank, after a what?
Accident.
After an accident, right? Recommendation from OSHA or something like that. But change in law or change of work equipment, right? Is when you review a risk assessment. Or in short, whenever you have a change altogether. Whenever you have a change altogether, right? You review the risk assessment, right? Isn't it kind of strange to tell anyone you're on your last month, right? Remember the first month we up in April? April. Well, you all started not the 1st of April, of course, right? But in April itself, right? April, May, June, July, August, 5 months. It does come to an end, doesn't it, right? All right. So I'll explain. I'm not going to read too much. I'll explain so that you'll understand a little better. So general principles of risk controls can be technical. Like a control then could be like an engineering control. Like if it's noise, you could actually put on like a muffler, well, on a muffler to the machine if you could, or you could just tighten up the pulleys or even change the pulleys, change the belt. The pulley is the big pieces of metal, the belt is circulating on that. Most things that make a noise have a pulley. So if you tighten up the pulleys, you can put dampened material on the pulleys itself, you could coat it. Those kind of controls are said to be technical, right? Behavioral controls is things like you give the workers PPE, earplugs, expect them to wear it, right? So that's behavioral because you give them it, you expect them to wear it, right? Procedural is that they could make a policy that says, okay, the machine is making noise. We can't service it at the moment, but the procedure here is that if you have no work around that machine, stay away from it, right? So only authorized person, then you'll have like a sign saying, things like only authorized person be on this point. Even those who are working around it, we can say something like, give me a minute, as somebody's coming in. We can say something like a procedure could have been to rotate the worker then. So yes, you are the machinist, but we don't have to be like you don't have to be in the workshop whole day. You could just see if you could machine on what you could machine. I did that. I think I told her that too. I guess that's another life too. Other than cleaning times, I worked in a machine shop, right? And you can machine out what you have to machine. Yeah, I could do it. I could do it. You could do it in a 1, 2, 3 hours time. What they used to tell me though, they used to tell me don't do that because like my supervisor will come and say, well, what did you do? Say, well, I finished the work, but he said, well, what are you going to do for the rest of the day? He said, don't do it like that because you think you have nothing to do. Sometimes 9 o'clock in the morning, I machine out all the pulleys already. Yeah, right? But then it really did make some sense. So like, like if they say you're doing nothing, then they will say you don't have nothing to do. So then you kind of be slow and you do like one pulley an hour, right? Pulley is a big sheet of metal, right? There's a big wheel, right? Anyway, but you understand that like a procedural control could be if that's the case. Like the flip of it could be true where you say, okay, if the machinist is there or the technician is there, machine out what you have to machine and then leave the room. Go and do something else. Find something else to do, right? And when I mean like they could say what you need to do. So then from the workshop, then you go down, come in. Yeah, from the workshop, yeah, then you would go and get maybe to do some other type of work you want to do this summer. Get it, write it and leave it. When you finish, put the course you're doing, right? I'll write the receipt and send it for you. Right? You could actually put your number from number 20 as well, right? The coordinator just left. Yeah. Yeah, right. Folks understand that. So a procedural control could be like job rotation then, right? Because you are sometimes able, if you're in that kind of noisy environment, it mightn't be you have to be there whole day in a paint booth, if you know what that is. The painter really don't have to be in the paint booth for 8 hours a day. You could just, when the welders are finished, when they finish with it, and whatever, it could get to the paint booth. You probably spend like 2, 3 hours in the paint booth, but you don't have to be in the paint booth, right? So all of those things could be proceeded in, and after that, maybe you could say the painter, would actually assist with this inspection or whatever have you. So you could have a procedural control, right? So the law for this is the kind of law you saw before, the management of health and safety at work regulation. It requires what you hear, the employer to introduce preventative and protective measures to control the risk, column 4 of your RA, right? To control the risk. Just now, Shivan said he trying to join, but I didn't see him. Oh, well, it did say join in. So the rest of it is, I've clicked the join button, but he doesn't seem to be getting through. Let me see if we can just let him know that. Right? Shivan, yeah, I mean, we have done our part there, right? Zoom doesn't allow me to do anything more. It's saying to him, he has been joining, but he hasn't been able to join, right? Okay, thanks. I'll do it for you after class, right? Right. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Yeah, so you have to try another device or something, right? So I've clicked join now, but for him it just say join in, but he hasn't gotten through. Anyway, thank God for the recording, right? Yeah, so the management of health and safety regulation is saying that the company must introduce these controls. And if you look at the headed, what I was telling you all in the other slide that went by, it have like two hierarchies then. That's the simplest way to explain that to you. Watch here, but it have like two hierarchies, right? It have this one and it have this one. It have two hierarchies. You could follow anyone. Um, they both say the same thing. If you want, I could analyze and show you that, right? The two hierarchies say the same thing. However, at the certificate level, your project mentions the hierarchy of control. So it's best when you write your control for the fourth column. Remember when you write something like the machine could be serviced, what you have to put in bracket, if it's a service, you could probably put the administrative control, right? If you put, and we can get back to hazard. Let's get back to hazard. If you think of something like this, let's say something like chemicals, hazardous substance chemical. Let's use one of my things I was talking about, the chemical they use to emulsify oil, right? So if one of your further control was to replace the chemicals with one that is less hazardous, then that word is obviously what? Which one would it be? If you say replace the chemicals with one that is less hazardous, one that is more environmentally friendly, better on the workers, and which one of these words would it be? Remember in the fourth column, when you put your controls, it will be
Substitution.
substitution, yeah. So remember, so the reason why this hierarchy is favored at the certificate level is because of your project. They favored this one, but it have another one. Now, this one, to be honest with you, this one is more like diploma students know this one. Like, in other words, it's like a different grade then. It's like this is meant for the certificate level. This is meant for diploma students, but you could use it too. They won't get it wrong. There are like two hierarchies there. The lower mention, watch it there. The employer needs to introduce preventative measures, and there are two such preventative measures: principles of prevention and the hierarchy of control. There have been some debate which doesn't interest you all. It interests people like me, right? There have some debate over the years, like which came first? Which of these things was first? The principles of prevention or the hierarchy of control? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Really doesn't matter, right? I mean, you have to eat both of them anyway, right? That's a tough question, right? But for the diploma students, like diploma level, like if a diploma student put the hierarchy of control, it's gonna be examiner more expected to see something deeper, like the principles of prevention. But you could use words, I mean, watch it. When they say this, combat the risk at the source, that is the same as elimination, right? Watch this, right? Replace the dangerous and put a non-dangerous or less dangerous. That is substitution. Adapt to technical progress. That is engineering controls, right? But you should have an idea of both of them at the certificate level. You all know what I'm going to say, right? You know what I'm going to say. At the certificate level, there have been no questions on the principles of prevention. And then when Nibosh hear that now, they will want to put a question on the principles of prevention, right? But no, there have been no questions on the principles of prevention, right? It don't mean you don't have to learn it. Just be familiar with it. It's like, you know, Pizza Hut and Papa John's. Both of them selling pizzas, right? So whichever one you like now, it does the same thing. At the end of the day, you eat a pizza, right? So whichever one you like, right? But what I said, the hierarchy is a bit more popular because of the project that the project favors. They say, remember to use the hierarchy of controls. In fact, it actually did say principles of prevention too, you know. But I think from the examiner expectation, most people have linked it to the hierarchy of controls, right? All right, I'm moving on. I mean, that's a debate. That's not really something for you all to diploma student. That's a nice research question. Which came first, the hierarchy or the principles of prevention? To them, it doesn't really matter either because you follow anyone. As I said, you have what you wanted to buy then. If it's pizza, you have one. It's just a different brand. You have two things doing the same thing. Both of them, they are successful in reducing the risk assigned to a hazard, which is what the aim is of them anyway, right? Okay, that's finished. I looked up just now because I was even trying to remember hierarchy question. I can remember one. I can't remember what year. There was like one hierarchy question, right? In the last 60 something exams. But it wasn't a hard question, right? You know, if they ask us something on the
March
hierarchy,
exam paper
remember, sorry,
the
go ahead.
March exam paper had a question. It
Sorry,
was
yeah, go ahead.
asking,
No, sorry, I didn't. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead with it.
March exam paper had a
Oh,
question about hierarchy of controls.
this much?
This March.
Okay, good, right? Okay, good. So that's probably the one. That's probably the one, right? But
Oh, sorry,
you
sir. I
know,
think it's May. Sorry, my bad. May.
me,
It was
okay,
May.
okay.
That
All
was the
right.
one
We
with
can go look
the
at it.
four
We
court
can look at
question.
it. Yeah. I have it here now, but I don't want to pause as yet, right? If you'll have it, fine, right? I guess in a hierarchy question, they just pick the words. I show they asking it to comment on if it was followed or not, or if it was suitable or not, something like that. And you could look through and see where they eliminate, if they did at all, where they substituted, if they did at all, if they engineered anything out, where they did at all, and you comment on that anyway, right? But if it's that close, if it's May, you're probably not going to get hierarchy again this year. You know, if it's May, you're probably not going to get about that. And that's not a trending topic. Remember, the general trends is moral, legal, financial, uh, ISO, not too much of a trending topic. The most common question is what the employers did wrong, what the management failed in, right? Safety culture, we'll finish chapter 3 or finish up part of chapter 3. These are one-off, right? Oddball questions. Like even the one we did before, suitable and sufficient one-off, one passive per here, one passive, but they can't guarantee then that you're going to get a suitable and sufficient or a hierarchy question if it comes, it comes. And then when it comes, then it doesn't come back again, right? But the point about it is that you have your notes. This class, everybody have the book as far as I am aware, right? If you didn't take your book, you'd have one or two here. Still, I have a shipment coming in next month again, but I believe everybody in this class got their books, right? Right now, we're trying to share out a shipment between two class, right? That's why you see me sometimes pointing across it because I know sometimes the coordinator don't know all the students now, but I know them, so I know who get book and who will get no book. But all of these things are there, you have them to use anyway, right? All right. Sources of health and safety information. So the sources of health and safety information from within your own company. This actually is too easy. This, by the way, is the methodology for your project. Remember the methodology that had sources of information, and it had that you went to the internet, you went to the HSE website. Look at here, right? So what are sources of information in the methodology? Sorry, like you would have said, you did an inspection. I spoke to the employees who was doing the job, right? Intranet, you remember there's a part of a risk assessment, sorry, the part of the methodology that says in the project, I looked at the accident book. Remember that? I looked at the accident records of the company, right? I looked at maintenance records. You can change it up a bit, seeing that you have the theory now, right? And then the first paragraph was, I visited the HSE website to get, information sources as relative to my company. You'd have quoted from the HSE sites, but they have some other sites out there. You have IOSH, you have, I'll call it the rest for you. Come, just give me a minute, huh? Okay, so what you have to do, you have to write it out. Your name, right. So yeah, you can actually check other institutes. You have IOSH. If you want, you could call the others for you, but the others are not ILO, right? But for your course, remember, this is the HSC website. That's in your guidance, right? That's the HSC website. That's the source of information. IOSH is the owners. Remember, they are the entity that started NIBOSH, the Institute of Occupational Safety and Health. Do you want me to call the others out for you? Thank you. Just put it under the book again, right? Yeah. So the other one is just now, I know somebody put a comment. If you could probably that's nice, 15 points on the hierarchy of control. Okay, good. It probably won't come again, right? The other one we have this, the meaning of this is the Chartered Institute of Electrical, sorry, no, my mistake. The Chartered Institute of Environmental Hygiene. To tell you there are other bodies out there now, right? Chartered Institute of Environmental Hygiene. This is the Chartered Institute of Building Service Engineers. The last one is the Institute of Electrical Engineers, right? So you can use other sources of information. However, this project kind of favor the HSE. So I'll put in this one here, right? Remember they said that's what they favored here, right? In this particular course anyway. All right, that's it for this one. Let me kind of clear that. The last thing here for today is safe systems of work, right? So what I'll do for that one, I will show you the definition. I'll just go to the end, right? So safe systems of work. So a safe system of work, I'll read the definition, right? Is the integration of personnel, articles, and substances in a laid out and considered method of working that takes into account the risk to employees as well as non-employees to ensure all the steps necessary for safe working have been anticipated and implemented. It is a safe way of doing the job doing the work in a safe way. Examples of such methods includes the JSA and the permit too, but we won't do permit today, right? So in short, a safe system of work is a safe way of doing the job, right? Now, how they do it, so what you will do, you'll read this out for me. I'll show you the last slide because these are the developmental slides to tell you what the SSOW is, right? So it must be done by competent persons. It must be done by competent persons. Come in. It must be done by competent persons, right? Yeah. So you're going to have to write it out, right? and leave the money in there, right? Yeah. Darian left now. Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the end of it though, right, is that a GSA looks like this. The end of it is this. So this is how it's a safe method of doing the work there, right? What they do, they take a task. If you go back to the slide, you'll see task. If you go back, you'll see it. Task, right? So I showing you the end slide so that you get all the learning on one slide, right? So you take a task, you break that task down into some job steps. And what they do with every step, they consider what is the hazard. And with every hazard, they consider the risk. And with every risk, they consider the control. That form itself is called a GSA form. That's it, right? So you can just leave it right here. So a GSA form, right, is where you take a task, whatever you want to do, manual handling, but you break it down into some steps. So you say step one, workers to retrieve boxes from the warehouse. What's the hazard of that? And you work on that. Step two, workers to carry boxes from the warehouse to the packaging area. What's the hazard of that? Step three, workers are to ascend, climb, or use a forklift, whatever, right? A mobile elevated working platform to access the higher ends of the shelves to pack these boxes was the hazard of that. So it is at the end of the day, like if you follow it, right? If you follow it, it's a way of getting the job done in a safe way. And that's what it is, a job safety analysis. Think you get it a bit? The steps are here. Select the task, decide on the steps, break the steps down. With every step, you consider the hazard. With every hazard, you consider the control. Look at there. Identify the hazard and controls, right? Now, the way I did mine, if you notice, mine have the risk in it. And that's because that's how they want it in Trinidad. Right? But I think by definition, right? By definition, a GSA doesn't have the risk in it. So there's a distinction between a GSA and a risk assessment. But companies in Trinidad, Shell, BP, they want the risk massy, they want the risk inside of it. So everybody who works at them now every contractor have to do it that way. You have to put the risk in it, right? If you look at the definition, you go way back to the definition, it never said risk. It kind of did though, right? The integration of personnel articles and substances in a considered and laid out method of working that takes into account the risk to employees. But if you look at the GSA, it's that you have to write it and leave it, right? You write it out for me. Yeah. 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 So if you look at the if you look at it, the definition says risk, but like a real GSA doesn't have risk with it. So I think that's why like some companies they want the risk with it. So I put it like this for you all to see. Like if you have the hazard, right? They have the hazard muscular strain, whatever it is, whatever was your hazard, noise, and you had the hazard, tinnitus. But why not work on the risk one time? And anybody knows the name of this? There's a name we use in Trinidad for it. So Shell and them, there's use a name. Shell BP, there's use another name for GSA. So if you don't know it, you write it down, right? Because again, just to get out there, they call it a TBRA. Very popular with companies like Massey and Shell and Atlantic and stuff, right?
So
TBRA. Yeah.
task-based risk assessment.
Task-based risk assessment, yeah, right? It's a kind of in thing in Trinidad here, right? But just remember what I tell you. But I don't think it's wrong. Like for exam, if they ask you, what do you consider in developing a GSA? Because the formula had risk in it. Just a pure GSA form is really different from a RA. But based on how BP and stuff want things now, BP Shell, and this becomes the industry standard in Trinidad where they put the risk in it, right? They calculate the risk in it one time anyway, right? It's like some people call me, they say, like, what's the difference then between this and a risk assessment? But it's kind of different because it's step by step. It's a more refined version of a risk assessment, right? And of course, I would just tell them, just follow what your company wants because, again, remember theory is one thing and industry best practices may be another thing. Plus, this is only level 3 anyway, right? We do have other risk assessment techniques out there, right? So this one is called a task-based risk assessment, right? Um, once it's written, I don't know if you get that. Once it's written, because the company have to write it, remember, they have to analyze the task. Let me just change this back, right? Once you analyze the task, right, and you write out a JSA, you have to rule it out for the employees then. Otherwise, they would know what to do. Remember, you would have thought about what is your step one, what is your step two, what is your step three. You have the hazard in it, but don't put it in a cabinet. Don't write it and hide it. Share it, right? So they have here, it's a legal responsibility to inform employees of the hazards and risks contained in the safe system of work. It enables the workers to be aware of what is required of the safe system of work. Training should cover why is the safe system of work needed, what is involved in the work, the precautions needed to make the work safe, details of any permit to work systems that may be needed, how to use, if you put a control like PPE, do the employees know to put it on, the emergency action to take, any monitoring to be done, such as dust measurements before or during or after the work itself. And I'll stop it there today. You monitor the system, make sure it's effective. We stop it at permit to work for today, right? Yeah, I'm done for today, right? I would try to log off and try to get off from this chair because I have another class started in a bit, right? Plus we have the rule to follow as well. Right? April register. This is actually our 13th session, right? We do go a little bit beyond the NEBOSH. We say about 15 sessions, but sometimes I kind of go a bit, for past papers' sake, remember, we would have taken some sessions and do past papers, right? But we would finish, right? We kind of I kind of, like when I have my classes, I kind of make it last till the week before exam, because to kind of keep it fresh in your head too. Sometimes we do send home students for 2 weeks, meaning they don't have any classes for 2 weeks, but there's no guarantee that the students are actually doing any work now in that 2 weeks anyway. So we try to keep you as much as possible before the exam date itself, right? Bika Bernard,
Present, sir.
thanks very much. Devon is on screen.
Present.
Yep. Cedranessa Ben. Let me see if I can make some of you out. I'm going to stop the recording now, or should I call the record? I should probably call it on air. Nibosh is taking account of these things, all right? Cedraness. So we're just about 18 people on today. No, I didn't see her, right? Okay. Justin Maraj. Janelle Jack.
Present.
Yeah, seeing Janelle name. Ryan Moore.
Present, sir.
Thanks, Ryan. Videsh.
Present.
Thanks, Videsh. Andre Wells is here. Emily
Present.
Gopal. I've been chatting with Emily during the week, but I don't think she's been most of the live. All right, okay. Carissa Joseph. Where people spoil their attendance record today. Sangita.
Present,
Sangita is
sir.
here, right? Yeah. Chelsea Harilal.
Present, sir.
Okay, thanks very much. Brittany Ramdas.
Present.
Thanks, Brittany. Wayne Ramnath. No? Brittany Modest.
Present, sir.
Thanks very much, Brittany. Vidal Joseph.
Present, sir.
Thanks, Vidal. Ishwar. Page Fortune. I chatted with Ishwar up till last night, I guess. Daryl and Carol, but I know Carol is finished, right? Shivan Suklal. He was
Present,
having the
sir.
incident. Okay, thanks very much. Shanika James. I know Shanika is here. Or she was here.
Present,
Shanika
sir.
is here. Yes, yeah. Aliyah, I know you are here too. Rishon
Hi,
Suknanan.
sir.
Hi.
Good evening. I just want to find out, by chance you posted last week class?
because I was looking for it to review something, but I didn't see it on YouTube.
That's a good question. That's a good question. I can check back for you. What happened last week? My storage on my computer was filled. That's 25 deleted in this class. I had to delete some files, right? So I
Okay.
couldn't get access because the storage was all, it's actually still full, to be honest. I just started to delete videos from my side from early on in the year, right? So that may have been, if you didn't get it, you could probably remind me, probably by Monday I can check, or maybe tonight, right? Because I freed up a bit of space. Remember, it's so much of students and it's so much of information. I didn't like when I hit the record button. Um, I wasn't sure if the session was recorded, so that could be an issue too. But if it was not recorded, there may be similar videos. If it was part three of the project, it was part three of the project. You can access it on YouTube. It was part
Okay, I'll
three.
just put it
Yeah, you could just go
on
to
YouTube then.
Shadrach, yeah, just put part three. But if it was recorded, I'm not sure because it's only in this the 5 sessions of on Saturday. I saw it came up like it wasn't able to record it. When I checked it, it said the storage capacity was actually filled. And I started to clean it sometime later on in the week, this week anyway, right? But Project Part 3, Shadrach Safety Institute, if I will look for it tonight, if I get it, I'll post it. If not, you can just retrieve one from the YouTube channel.
Okay, and then
Yeah,
you said Wednesday you would confirm about the last payment, right?
I'm hoping so,
Okay, no
right? We have
problem.
to wait for Nibosh to clear something, but it takes 2 days to respond to an email, right? So, we hoping by Wednesday that they will clear your payments. They normally accept payments the month before your exam. So how your exam is September, it should be, we should start to make the payments or be able to make the payments the first week in August, which would actually be, well, today, but today is not really a work day, but from next week then, right? So that week there, Wednesday, Thursday,
Okay,
Friday, we can start to receive payments. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
All right. Anthony, Mark, I think Anthony is
Yeah.
here. Yeah. And we have Christine Rampasad, right? Folks,
Present.
that's a wrap. Thanks very much. I'm gonna have to log off because the other people are also here as well. Right? I do get maybe 3 minutes to stand up a bit with this one, right? All the best, everyone. I'll see you all
Yes,
back
sir. Bye.
next